people suffer from a condition called slave morality. You have master morality, you have slave morality, right? From my observation of society and of history, slave morality is taught, is programmed on people from religions. Now, people got to understand this. Religion always have been tied to the bosses, like tied to corporations, industries, or governments on some money plays. So people think that these people are some holy people. These are just people.
Yeah.
These are men with agendas, and their agenda is to be good to themselves and make as much money as possible.
Yeah.
So how they're doing that is by keeping most people under the condition of slavery psychologically. This is what I'm talking about. They associate morality to suffering, to the downtrodden, to oppression,
yeah,
right?
control, yeah.
Listen, sometimes you can get overpowered and oppressed, right? Get out of it. I adhere to reality, not idealism. I do not think that all men are created equal. I do think life is fair. You fight for it. Human beings, we're incredible. I love humans. I love being a human, right? But we do weird shit. We do weird shit like decide that everybody's equal, right? I don't even like the idea of voting, right? Because most people are not qualified to vote on. You don't know anything about these issues, right? I'm all right with the strongest, the wisest ascending to the top and distributing rules. I'm cool with that.
Like a Darwinistic, naturalistic look at view.
I'm not really keen on, I don't know a lot about Darwin's teachings, but a naturalistic view. The strongest, wisest is at the top. Yeah. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
Who don't want that being their representative?
Well, the people not on top. Those are the ones who would not, you know what I'm saying?
And they associate that with negativity. So somebody said to me like, yeah, but what about a Buddhist monk and this, that, and the third? And I said, listen, I have no issue with monks. I kind of envy the fact that they get to employ tactics to gain that level of self-mastery. However, they don't do shit for anybody but themselves, right?
That's a good point.
You may call me an asshole, aggressive, but guess what? I and people like me shift society. Why would you say that, Mike Rashid? I run businesses. We are aggressively raising the bar in our industry. That's competition, and competition breeds innovation, so it's making it better for your ass, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? And people like me, we're making shit happen, creating jobs, right? Creating opportunities for people. And we're giving y'all something to talk about, motherfucker. How about that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is really interesting, right? All these people, when you come to the situation, like you said before, remember we had a conversation in the conference room about discipline, right? How many people require discipline, right? So it's like there's two sides to this coin. Number one, you grow up and you're taught a certain way to dress, a certain way to talk to your elders, a certain way to show a certain level of respect, because you need that. Right. To a point, though, where it's excessive. Like, for instance, our education system in the United States, the Prussian model of education, was created to create manufacturing jobs. So you would go through school until you were 18.
Real quick, tell the people how long ago that was implemented.
That was Russia. The Prussian model, I think, was in the 18th century.
Okay, and we're in, what, 2024?
2024, yeah.
AI, tech.
Yeah, if you guys want a great example of like ways we could change our education system and make it way more efficient, read The One World Schoolhouse by Solomon Kahn. He just talks about this concept where like teachers should be there for group activities. The children should actually, like, what's the reason why you and I couldn't go to JUCO and actually be taught by a Nobel Prize winner? Why not? We can watch it on video. Right. It seems way more efficient to me than someone who like barely cares about their job, but that the teacher is now the proctor to get the classroom discussion going, and therefore we can learn from each other and like explore maybe the mock trial or doing a real world case study. That's what the teacher's for. But the actual seminar, the actual lesson should be done by, you know, someone who's won a Nobel Prize. Why can't I learn evolutionary psychology from Dr. David Buss at UT Austin? Why can't I learn from the best? Why can't I have learn evolutionary biology from Richard Dawkins? Why can't I do those things? And the reason why is because teachers unions want to hold their place, and then you get into this. Teachers union has become this monolith, so it becomes harder and harder to teach people. But anyway, we get into this place where we still want our children to have discipline, but then we don't want them to be sheep either.
I think people are okay with it. They don't even think about what's becoming.
I think you and I don't want our children to become sheep. I agree with what you're saying. I think most people, but they kind of like go along to get along. Yeah. I was thinking when you started talking about the slavery mentality, I started thinking about the YouTube commenters that you were saying before, like these guys who write negative stuff. They stand for nothing. They provide no alternative solution. Right. They don't make anyone's life better. Right. They stand against everything, and they think they're free, but they're like their slave masters had made them believe that they're free. Like again, we were just I was showing that Will Hitchens post. Will Hitchens just panders to women. He has a big following on Instagram from just women pandering, and Meta rewards that type of content. And so when you see that, he legitimately thinks he's free and we're the ones who are slaves. Like he can't make any other content. He can only make women pandering content.
And he gives off poor energy.
Yeah.
Women are not lined up to fuck this guy.
Yeah, for sure.
He has no groupies. He has nobody's in his DMs.
Yeah.
Right? It's always those guys. There's another guy, Chris GQ Perry. Have you seen him?
No, I haven't seen him.
I can't stand this guy, right? It's so annoying. And women eat it up. All right, so the guy is looking at a teleprompter. I can tell, right? Because it's like his eyes is over here, but his head is straight. It's very weird, right? And he's reading these little woke feminine quotes, and they eat it up. It's so pathetic. It's like, bro, shut the fuck up. You don't even think about these things, right? You probably getting AI to write all of this shit. He's a chemical robot.
Yeah.
Programmed to say things that get women to like. And I see girls who I know and liking this shit. I'm like, you would not fuck this guy.
That's exactly.
You would not fuck this guy.
I want to grab them by the collar and be like, dude, she'll never fuck you. Like, I'm not even mad at them. I just want to slap. Dude, I know you think when I make content that discusses the difference between men and women, I know you as the white knight male want to jump into the comments and go after me. Just know all those women who liked your content will never ever fuck you. And it's just like
hang
so
out with
crazy.
Me and my girlfriend.
Yeah, for sure. But that's another one. When I started making content that was more controversial, there were certain female friends of mine that were like straight up feminists. They're like huge influencers. And I legitimately thought I was going to lose them as friends. And the opposite was true. They want to come on my show. I had one girl, she I'm not really comfortable with your content. Now she's like, my ex-boyfriend watches your show. Now I want to go on your fucking show. Yeah. And it's one of these crazy things. I thought I was going to lose them as friends, but they weren't going to really be friends. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Destiny and I are friends, but I don't agree with the stuff that he says. But like, I like the guy a lot. Yeah. You know, it's one of these situations. And then Rollo Tomasi and Destiny can't stand each other, but Rollo's one of my best friends in the world.
It's weird for people to agree with every single thing that each one has. People got to be all right with that. You're going to disagree. It's not the end of the world. You don't lose a friendship because you guys don't see the same thing, right? This is interesting. So there's notions that I landed on that I wish that certain friends of mine did. And certain friends, I really care about them, right? And I don't want to bruise their feelings or their egos. Yeah. So I kind of back off. But I have faith. I'm like, he's smart though. I think he's going to get it one day. And it always happens. They always you know what, bro? I was thinking about this shit. This shit is kind of stupid. And I'd be wanting to write it down. Like one day so-and-so is going to come out of this, right?
Because dealing with women is self-critiquing. In the Air Force, we had this one thing. We had this joke. It's like if you don't put the gear down when you land, it's self-critiquing because you blow up in a fireball, right? The nose goes into the runway. Yeah. You can make that mistake, but you can only do it once. Dealing with women is also self-critiquing. It's just, are you willing to take the lesson? Yeah. If you continue to choose women of a certain ilk, you will continue to get cheated on by those women, and then keep thinking that the women are the problem instead of being able to discern a woman who needs a high level of stimulus in order to be with you. Well, if she needs a high level of stimulus, she's just going to go take a photo with Chris Brown and let him grab her ass. Right. That's not the girl you're going to marry. You can have fun with her. You can invite her over with you and your girl, but that's not the girl you should marry. And this other girl, she actually requires less stimulus and brings less drama in your life. But because you're not used to that, you can't tell that that's the good woman. The woman who brings you more peace, and she might not even be as hot, but she brings you more peace. And then you're like, oh, that's the one you stay with for 75 years and have kids with. Okay, now I understand that. But it's self-critiquing. You go through it enough. The problem with men and women, though, is if you and I learn this lesson in our late 40s or early 50s, we can still have kids. Yeah. And we'll have a lot of money, be experienced. The problem is if you're a woman and you figure this out when you're 38, oh, shit.
But that's not a thing, though. Generally speaking, not always, I don't date somebody that's over 30. An attractive woman that's over 30 and that's single, to me, is problems. Why are you single?
Yes.
You've had probably too many experiences, right, with men. So you're carrying a lot of emotional baggage that I don't deserve to have to deal with. I typically don't. And here's the thing with people, period, not just women, but men and women. The older one gets, if they're not locked into a growth mindset early, if they're not able to take constructive criticism and pivot and want to be right, they're not going to change the older they get. They get more stuck in their ways, more brazen. They really think that they be telling people, but I'm like, but you're lonely. You know what I'm saying? All right, strong woman. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I had a girl one time. she told me in the beginning that this isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
Not by saying that, but she said, I used to be masculine in relationships. I'm like, but you know, I've been doing some work and and I understand and said all the right things, but in my head, I'm like, it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. And sure enough, it was just a lot of like, it was good a lot, but those tendencies would come out, right?
Yeah.
When I'm correcting certain things, it was hard for her to accept it. You know what I'm saying? It was hard for her when she would fuck up. It was like impossible to say I'm sorry.
And then when she figures it out, it was her idea. It was never, oh, Mike, you were right. It was her idea that she finally came to this realization. That's one of the reasons why I'm with the girl I'm with now is because after a couple years, she's like, we had spent some time where I was on vacation or I took a trip, come back, and she came to this realization. She comes to me and she goes, I've been listening to all my female friends and a lot of them are 40, 50 years old and they're alone. And I started to realize I don't want to listen to their advice because I don't want their life. And then she was like, and this is when I knew this is a different girl. She goes, I started to realize everything you told me, Michael, was right. Everything you said was right.
Smart.
Yeah.
She's smart.
It was incredible when I heard it because she was rambunctious when I met her. She's from Southwest Arkansas, you know what I'm saying? And so it was one of these things where like you come to that realization that this works for you and this doesn't, and like, can you take that feedback and understand? Because as men, we have to do that. Right. We're not attractive enough to get through life. Most of us aren't. We're not rich enough when we're born to get through life. We actually have to be told no several times, and we have to become stronger, more proficient. We have to become useful to other men. These are things we have to do. Whereas if you're a really attractive woman, there's this period of time, especially from the time of say 18 to 28, where you can say something fucking crazy and dudes are like, God, I really want to fuck. So I'm just going to listen to this nonsense and not say anything. I'm not going to comment on your ridiculous Instagram post, or I'm not going to say this to your face because I'm trying to smash. And so these women will go 10 years and they'll like, it's like the emperor has no clothes and nobody wants to tell him this. And you get to this point where, and I've had several women come to this realization, but the problem is, when do they come to this realization? Myron Gaines has this really great quote. He goes, women do not truly begin to grow until men stop buying them drinks. At that point, it's like, oh, dude, you know what I'm saying? I started thinking about it as like, yeah, because no one ever bought me drinks.
Right.
So I had to make these right decisions. I had to join the military, learn to become an entrepreneur, stop eating like shit. The military, funny enough, that was the worst I've ever eaten. I was in the worst shape. I had to start eating better, start taking care of my body, cold plunge, intermittent fasting, sauna room, I started doing 4-day splits in the workouts. I started I listened to my friend Jay Cutler, like when he started telling me workouts to do, stuff like that. And from all that, I have to make those decisions, and no one was going to save me. And if I didn't want to do those things, one of the other parts was it was so appealing to go back to being a sheep. My friend Owen Cook, who runs he used to run Real Social Dynamics. Owen used to say, beta males get to eat too. Beta males get to fuck every once in a while. Beta male, like, it's not that bad being a beta male. For you and me, it would be the worst thing in the world. But for most guys, it's like a beta male, that doesn't sound that bad. And so most guys are going to see the situation. They're like, well, I get one wife, right? I do get a job where I might get some retirement and like, you know, I can get a credit card. And like, from their standpoint, they look at that and they're like, that doesn't sound that bad. What's the opposite? People make fun of me. People criticize me.
It's not that bad for most people.
Yes.
Right? And it's got to be like that.
Yeah.
Listen, it's just a small space at the top. I mean, look at the Pareto principle, right?
Yeah.
It's always a small output of anything creating the most output of everything, right? So there is no difference with men of certain statures, right?
Yeah.
It's very few, right? So most people have to be regular, have to be average.
Yes.
It's okay. I just tell people, especially anyone within the earshot of me, at least try.
Yeah.
Try. You don't have to accept being average, because life becomes very colorful and very fulfilling when you're trying to peak, when you're trying to hit your potential. And human beings, listen, we got Elon Musk, right? He's a person that tapped into his potential.
Yes.
Floyd Mayweather tapped into his potential. We have incredible human beings, and we're all human beings.
Yeah.
We all have the potential for something great. Now, here's the thing. When I was talking about slave morality, then you have master morality. I adopt master morality, but there's a different type of master morality. So the churches, the government officials, the quote unquote gatekeepers of society, they keep people programmed with slave morality and to keep them slaves, right? Like, they want to keep eating off of these people, right?
Well, could you say that about the education system too? They use like these mills that print law degrees for people who are not qualified to practice law. They're using you as an annuity.
Listen, it's weird for a teacher to teach business.
Isn't it?
Your teacher.
Yeah.
Just like this lady was trying to go back and forth with me, but I didn't participate. She argued it with herself. She's a psychologist, right? And she thought that my message telling men that depression is a decision was dangerous, right? I'm telling them work out, whatever puts you in that situation, start working on it, start fixing it. You ain't got time to be depressed, right? I understand depression is a big monster, right? Looming over many of us. Fight that motherfucker off. Be defiant to it. I did, right? And she's telling me I'm not qualified to speak on these things. I'm like, wow.
But you did. You had depression and then you didn't.
You're not qualified to speak on these things. This is what I told her. I said, man, in all due respect, you went to school 6-8 years, and then as soon as you graduated, that school employed you. So you're teaching what you learned. You have to teach that protocol, right? I'm not going to give you my qualifications, right? It'll spin your head. But trust me, I'm qualified. You're not qualified. You're all theory. And your theory is around a system that doesn't change. They don't modify anything. And it's based around medication, drugging people up. That's dangerous. So that's extremely dangerous.
You were talking about the natural, like you're a naturalist, right? Okay, so what if we did this instead? We started to say the cures for depression like exist in our evolution. So let's say 50,000 years ago, the man who stayed in the cave and felt sorry for himself, he did not procure a wife or protein for the tribe to eat. So you're evolutionarily, which guy would get the dopamine hit and the oxytocin reliefs and the serotonin? The guy who kills the game, comes back with it. Me and Brandon Carter used to talk about this. You'd walk in and you'd have the deer. Just imagine the feeling that the tribe that's starving feel, like the cheering that you get.
You're the guy.
There's no, I'm telling you right now, not even winning a Super Bowl, there's probably no equivalent feeling for anyone today than you feeding the starving tribe and seeing your wife and your kids right there. And we don't have anything like that. And I promise you that lady, whoever she is, because she doesn't conceive of this concept, can't understand that man is not depressed. He's not, because 100%. He provided. Now, here's the thing. Now, what does that also mean? That means the cure for depression for a man is now different than the cure for depression for a woman.
Correct.
I have never seen a guy with a basketball in his hand be depressed. I have never seen a guy who's dating a beautiful woman who is like absolutely obsessed with him be depressed. But yet if I were to say, get a hot girlfriend and go to the gym, it's like, you're not qualified. It was like, I might not be qualified, but I've also never seen it not work. Now, there's some people that do suffer from schizophrenia, actual clinical depression, these things like this. But my thing is, create a scalable business, start doing things that you enjoy, maybe spend some time in nature, go to the gym, and then try meeting new people. Then after that, if it's still debilitating depression, absolutely go seek help. But do those things first. And don't accept from the beginning, hey, this is the easy way out for me to say you have a diagnosis of depression. Therefore, if I have a diagnosis of depression, what have I done? I've taken on an identity. This identity has been pre-programmed for me by pharmaceutical companies. And it's like, and the best part is this, there's no distinction between my depression and a female depression. None whatsoever. Postpartum depression for a woman, that's something men do not experience. Men and women deal with depression differently. Women are twice as likely to deal with depression than men are. And it has mostly to do with the fact that we have 17 times as much testosterone as them. But like when you come to that realization, and then you look in the literature, and not only does it not give different prescriptions for men and women, it literally says things. The American Psychological Association said that they said that traditional masculinity, they labeled it as a disorder. Stop. I know some people think I am exaggerating right now. That's Stop hilarious. What you're doing and look up APA, traditional masculinity, and they think traditional masculinity is a disorder. You want to think, like, when people say, oh man, there's a conspiracy or whatever, it sounds nuts until you see stuff like that and you're like, oh no, they really are trying to stop masculine men from being masculine because they keep leading in society. There's one other thing though you said about the Pareto principle. Let's actually put the numbers to it. On dating apps, the top 10% of men get 63% of the right swipes. For women, it's the top 43% of women get 63% of the right swipes. So we have more of a distribution. For the top 20% of men get 83% of the right swipes. And this one's crazy. The top 40% of men get 96% of the right swipes, which means the bottom 60% of men are competing with 4% of women. That should tell you Pareto principle. Then we look at like body count. There's probably a bottom third of men that like have maybe 1 or 2 sexual partners by the time that they're 30. The median or the mean is five sexual partners in a lifetime. When you get to the top 5%, men have had 50 sexual partners. In the top 1%, it's 150 sexual partners. So I want you to consider this. 0 for the first third, then in the mean we're at 5, and then at 150, does that seem like a normal distribution to you? Or does it seem like there's a few guys at the top that are having unlimited success when it comes to money, scaling their business, fixing their social media, dating beautiful women, have higher IQs, live longer lives that are healthier, and then the rest of them, like we said before, are just sheep, and they're happy being sheep. And the last thing you were saying before, it's never like getting into that top echelon. It's never been easier because the world keeps teaching you to not be in it. So like me teaching men like actual proper dating techniques. Hey man, get her to talk about herself. To some people, they're like, oh, that sounds Machiavellian. That sounds like you're, being manipulative. Teaching normal dating techniques to the regular world, to big tech and the larger overall media complex, they look at that as being toxic. So what I'm saying is, if you just listen to good advice, because everyone else is being taught bad advice, it's so easy to get in this top 15% now.
Yeah. One's destiny is literally the decisions they make, right? And then here's an easy equation. All the little things matter. It adds up. One does not get buff overnight.
Sure.
There's not one event that makes him buff. One powerlifting meeting. No. Every day he's doing this.
Yeah.
It's habits. And discipline is required. What's discipline? Is doing the things that are good for you, even when you don't want to do it. Still do it. Fuck it. Go do it. Just go. And then what happens is, after a while, like the things that were hard for you to do, that you needed to create all of this discipline for, you don't. It's just easy. It's second nature. You can't, like, we was at the gym today, and one of my buddies, they did travel all over the world 45 days and he didn't work out. I was like, that's crazy to me.
That is crazy.
Part of my existence is feeling good because I've worked out and hit the sauna and all of the things in the morning, right? So if I don't do that, I'm not in the best mood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I don't think I'll be pleasant on a trip like that. I've built up so much of this over time. I'm just locked in. And it's funny that they say that's toxic, right? Somebody called me a sociopath. Is it a sociopath?
Sociopath,
no.
Is it psychopath? There's sociopath or sociopath. Antisocial personality disorder.
Sociopath. No, narcissist. They call me a narcissist.
So that's one of the other Machiavellian.
So I looked up narcissist. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is me. It looks great. And then the bottom part, don't care about other people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think you're a narcissist.
No, I don't care about everybody. Yeah. I care about people I care about. And that's okay. And that should be okay to other people. I'm not saying I'm going out harming people that I don't care about. I don't. I just don't deal with them. But it's abnormal for one to really care about everybody. Like, you don't have the capacity.
But you're still aware that other people have feelings.
Yeah,
like
for
you,
sure.
You are like, I don't think you're a narcissist, because not only are you aware that other people have feelings, you can actually feel bad for them and know that they're making the wrong decision, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Narcissists can't do that. Narcissists are like, how do you not see everything my way? So whereas like a normal person, like if you see a girl crying because you had to tell her an uncomfortable truth, you're like, oh, I kind of feel bad. Whereas the narcissist is like, what are you talking about? You get to hang out with me. You get to spend time with me. You should be happy. This is all about me. Narcissists are incapable of understanding or empathy. They don't have and I know you have that ability.
No, I got a high degree of empathy.
Yeah.
But like 90% of what makes a narcissist is also what makes a successful man in this world.
Isn't it crazy?
So it's like, this is what y'all are demonizing, right? These notions like this, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. No thanks. Get that shit out of here.
Yeah.
That's dangerous. The meek shall inherit the earth. No, they're not. No, they're not. They told my ancestors on plantations, like, hey, I know this kind of sucks right now, but look at this scripture right here. Honor your master. Just keep doing what you're doing. But when you die, land of milk and honey. It's all good. And people believe that shit. No thanks. You got heaven, I want heaven right now. I'm getting my heaven right now. And that's the thing. You can create your own heaven. If you take scripture as literal, I mean, the description of heaven is a palace with pearly gates and golden floors. It sounds fire. It's a mansion. Work for it. When you're dead, nobody's come back to really tell us what happens.
Yeah.
Let's deal with what we have right now. I don't even I'm not a big planner, right? Because I just honor right now. I honor what I have. Yesterday, I don't think about. It's gone. Tomorrow is an illusion. I hope I have tomorrow. I really would like tomorrow, but I'm living now and I'm honoring these moments now. And people need to like really honor that, to honor themselves and love themselves. I ask people all the time, do you love yourself, right? Of course, of course. I'm like, all right. So I ask them a bunch of questions. They're not loving themselves well.
Yeah.
You know, they're not even honest with themselves. Life, in my estimation, life is rich when you have a community of people that love you, care about you care about them. Y'all need each other, they need you, especially for a man to be needed, right? And respected. That's a currency that's worth more than gold.
Yes.
Respect. But you need to be able to deal with people in the right way. And if you're not dealing with this with self in the highest order, you can't deal with anybody else like that. If you're not honest with yourself, you can't be honest with other people.
Yeah.
If you're not loving yourself, you can't love other people. And then the basic things are things like working out.
Yeah.
Things like being mindful of the food that you put in your body.
Yes.
Things like not drinking alcohol, right? I get it. I get the fun components, right? But fellas, I tell fellas this all the time. I'm okay with fun, but fun for me is setting it up for everybody else to have fun.
For sure, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Me being on point. I enjoy that. So people got their panties in a bunch of a post I did the other day. 19 Keys and I did a podcast, and he asked me, what's the optimal state for a man? I said, for me, is a state of war.
Interesting.
A state of like always prepared for war, right? I'm at war at all times. And physical is the least part, right? But I'm ready for that. It's psychological, it's spiritual, it's financial, it's business, it's all of the things, right? Think about this. Back to idealism. In America, this is the best place to live, right?
Yeah.
The opportunities are in an abundance. People are relatively free, and it's pretty safe unless you're in certain areas, right?
Yeah.
And you can just not be in those areas. But we only have that relative freedom, this peace, this opulence.
I already know where you're going. Yeah.
Because the heads of this state, of this place, this great nation, are extremely treacherous and extremely violent.
And violent, yeah.
Right? So without great violence, there would be no great peace,
Yeah.
right? So that has to be the case. And as a head of a family,
Yeah.
As a head of a business, as a head of all of these things, I have to be that guy.
Yeah.
Y'all don't have to see it, right? And people, it's weird that girls are loving what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, pay attention to what the ladies are saying.
Yeah.
They're in here saying, look, you need peace and just, when war comes and you do it. Like, how do you get ready for war if you're always in a state
It is better
of
to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Miyamoto Musashi.
Yeah.
So who's a gentleman, calligraphy, poetry, but he killed 150 men.
Yeah.
You feel me? I attribute morality to that, to a man that's extremely capable. Not just capable, but willing to make that full commitment. So when I teach about being dangerous in my community, right, to men, and it's not just about being physically capable, but are you down to shoot somebody? Are you down to choke that man's life out of his body if he does X, Y, Z? And I have these guys at the gun range, like, that's cool, but are you going to use that on somebody?
Yeah.
So that's what it takes. It's like we all love somebody that can really commit. We're all going to die one day. People hold on to life. They fear death.
Yeah.
They fear incarceration. It's like, no, I accept it all. I got to go at some point. I'd rather go out in a fly way. Because somebody said one time, some of the shit that I was talking about, they're like, they're going to kill you for that. I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time. You know what I'm saying? Amplify my voice.
Yeah.
Amplify my message. That's cool. I got to die anyway. I don't want to be an old fucking decrepit man.
Yeah.
With a diaper on.
So Mia Khalifa, she had an interesting comment. She said, it goes, when I was doing porn, I was selling my body to the porn companies. It's worse to be in the army. He goes, because if you're in the army, you're selling your body to the government. And everyone sent me this video and wanted me to react to it. And I was like, and it's really interesting because I was like, does Mia Khalifa think I joined the military for me? I didn't join the military for me. I joined the military for you. I joined the military for Mia Khalifa. I joined the military for your freedom. And what you said before, extremely violent men have chiseled out this cubby hole of safety for her to say nonsense like that. And the problem is, Mike, a lot of times we've done too good of a job. It's the father who makes so much money that he makes his wife and his children's life so cushy that then they complain to him about how their lives are. We get so good at being violent, like you said, to carve out this place of safety for our family that one of the best lessons I've ever heard, Neil Patel, the guy's worth several $100 million. if you guys know, the SEO specialist. And one of the things he regrets is he created an irrevocable trust for his children based on a certain percentage of his company. Well, now his children are going to inherit hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's like, I wish I had not done that because it's going to change the way they grow up as far as the struggle that they have to go through. We get so good sometimes at providing for our friends and our family that they are now able to complain. So now Mia Khalifa, who does things where in a different time and place she would not be as accepted, is now sitting there complaining. My favorite thing about Mia Khalifa is she complains about porn stars while using her porn name to complain about porn stars, then goes on OnlyFans and continues to produce content in the nude. It's like, but she can live in that hypocrisy because she lives in a place where people are willing to die for her freedom to do so, and she completely misses the irony in what's going on there. So what you're saying is exactly correct. But the further and further away we get from the survival scenario, meaning as technology increases, as we start figuring out ways to produce food quicker, produce shelter, I think one day you're going to see 3D printed homes, and that's what we're going to do with our homeless situation.
It's happening.
Yeah,
it's happening.
But as we get further and
meat,
and
shit like that.
As we get further and further away from a survival scenario, great book on this by Steven Pinker is called Enlightenment Now. The level of poverty people exist. The poorest man in the world, in the country right now, still has broad spectrum antibiotics. Whereas like Henry VIII died of gout. He was the richest man in the world and died of something that we could cure today. The poorest people in the world are still wealthy in comparison to their ancestors. But we've made the world so comfortable that now we have the ability to sit there and watch pornography or women go on OnlyFans and make money. And by the way, I don't have a problem if a woman wants to make money on OnlyFans, but it distorts the way her mind works. And it's like, I didn't do a lot of work to make this money, and now I'm suffering from depression and I can't figure out why. The answer must be for me to take Prozac. That must be the answer. Or a man watches a bunch of pornography, or the worst one is, you were talking before about taking the feedback and people being able to like listen. It's the guy, like, this is a common problem I have, is very wealthy clients who used to pay women for sex, and they come to me and they actually think they have game. They're like, I'm good with women and I pay women for sex, and they mix the two together. And you're like trying to explain to them, like, no, you have no game. The girl has tricked you into thinking you have game. And you don't understand that. Or the woman who left swiped 600 times on a dating app, and she thinks because she left swiped on all those men that she's better than those men, and that she could easily at 33, 43, whenever, find any one of those men to come back and then to be in a relationship with her and put a baby in her and provide for her. And she doesn't realize 14% of men in this country make over $100,000 a year. 17% of the men in this country are 6 feet tall. The top 1% of wage earners in this country make $500,000 a year, but she thinks that she's going to get a guy who makes $5 million a year and 6'3",
and it's going to be just her
and faithful. Exactly. And exactly. So that level of delusion, we're not willing to look at take the feedback from what it is that we're doing. And the last one that I was thinking of, if you ever watch like really progressive, like liberal content creators, they look at people yelling. It could be the Navy SEALs. I don't know if you've seen, there's these certain alpha male shows where they scream at guys, or guys like me yelling at people. And Justin Waller was recently canceled on YouTube because Vice found a clip of him like being critical of a guy. It was like a nothing clip. And the reason is because political progressives, liberals, or people, you know what you want to say, or collectivists, they look at that and they don't understand that I am telling, like a military training instructor, a Marine Corps instructor, he's telling the cadet these things because he loves them. That person. You're a Marine and I'm a Marine. I'm an airman, you're an airman.
He's trying to be effective.
But he doesn't, but like if you're a progressive, or if you're a weak-minded person, if you're a slave, like we said before, that doesn't seem like that's possible, and it doesn't seem like it's productive. I'm disciplining my child because I love my child, and that's so hard for people to grasp. They're like, no, you're trying to control them. If I tell my daughter, you should try, I want you to be with a man who's willing to die for you and my grandchild, and I don't want you to give sex to anyone but him. And if you do that, you got the best chance of like having a long relationship. To people out to Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, I'm controlling her. And it's so, no, I'm not telling her that because I hate her. I'm telling that because I love her.
And I know better.
Yes.
I know better.
I know better, yeah.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting. So you bring up a really interesting point about how the guy who's worth a few $100 million, he created a soft life for his family.
Yes.
So that's something that I've always wanted to like be delicate about, to not do. But I also work my ass off for my kids to live what's considered a privileged life. I don't see it as privilege. I think it's a natural state of where they should
Yeah.
be because of my hustle. So for instance, with my son, I just keep him close to me, and we talk a lot. We talk a lot, right? The first bit of adversity that I gave him was putting him in boxing, and it's funny because that was my baby boy. Seeing him getting punched in the face, it hurt, but I needed to do that. It had to happen, you know? And I was like, so it hurt for one, because this is your child, but then there's a whole nother layer to it. It's like, is my child a punk?
No,
How's he
here's
gonna
the thing. The first time your child got hit in the head when he was boxing, you know what you guaranteed? He was never going to be a YouTube commenter.
Oh,
He was
facts.
never going to
Yeah.
be a fucking troll
Yeah.
on
Oh, yeah,
TikTok.
for
You
sure.
guarantee. You
For
want to know
sure.
why? Because he got hit in the face. Do you
Yeah.
remember that dude who was talking shit to Mike Tyson on the plane? Mike Tyson gets up
Yeah.
and starts punching
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
That guy leaves negative YouTube comments.
Oh, for sure.
If you, me, Wes Watson, Dan Fleischman, Justin Waller, if we're all sitting having dinner, and I'm like, hey guys, when was the last time any of you went on Instagram and left a negative YouTube
doesn't
comment?
happen.
We'd be like, I don't know how to leave a negative YouTube comment.
It's so bizarre to do.
Yeah.
First of all, if I don't like your shit, I'm not gonna watch it.
Exactly.
Second of all, if like there's people that I know that I didn't like their content, I just stopped following them so I don't have to see it. It's so many steps before leaving a comment and then hitting send.
If you,
It's I would think it's embarrassing.
It
You
is.
should be embarrassed.
If you publicly criticize someone whose phone number you have, that is such
right.
bitch behavior.
Yeah.
I made a rule. If I have a guy's phone number and he says something bad about me, I'm always going to talk to him first because I don't need clout from getting into a beef with you.
Even like there's people that try to hide, like the psychologist woman. If she cared, DM me. Let's talk about it. Say that my position is a little bit problematic and explain why.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny because we talked a little bit in the DM, and I just wasn't bending on my position, and it was funny. Her reaction was just like, "You're such a dangerous man." I'm like, wow. I've never even yelled at a woman. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't yell at men, right? I'm dangerous. Like, I would keep you safe. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that to her. And I'm sure her husband is probably some soft guy. She's not proud of him because I didn't see him anywhere on there.
Sure.
But I listened to her and I heard her mention him. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, with my boy, that first sparring, he got turned. It was like the dog with his dick out. Like they ready for war.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, he got it in him. The dog is in him, right? But he's I have been and I still am training him to be a legitimate Renaissance man, a gentleman, right? A man who can appreciate the arts, right? A man who trains his body and his mind, and a man who can be a warrior when necessary. And I'm so pleased with him thus far because he's such a solid human being.
Yeah.
He's not like, you know, the bratty kids. Like he's chill. He thinks about me when we're shopping or this. Like, nah, Dad, we don't need that. You know, we can save money by doing this, and I love that. You know, because I'm not frugal at all.
Yeah.
But he is, and I don't know how, and I love it.
It's so great.
I
yeah.
love it.
And you also mentioned he lives with you and he's going to live with you for a while. So
So he's married.
I think the key there is like, as long as he plays by your rules,
Yeah.
then he understands that
Right.
things will be fine for him.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. You mentioned another thing before. You said the optimal state for men is a state of war.
Some men.
Some men, yes. I think the apex of human existence, and I'm just going through like evolutionary studies, is men achieving goals with other men. So this is the reason why we watch the Super Bowl, the reason why we watch the World Cup, the reason why we watch war movies, the reason why we all sat there, people sat there in 1969, watched the moon landing. The reason why we watch these things because it was men accomplishing goals. Even the rescue operations, when their submarines are trying to rescue people or pulling someone out of a well, we all come together as a society and we're as a group accomplishing mentally, we're like almost accomplishing goals together. That and having a family. I think those are the two apexes of human existence.
agree.
And going to war would essentially be planning, strategy, resources, logistics, camaraderie, leadership, communication, all those things that you would need in order to go to war.
Right.
And so that would be accomplishing a goal. I mean, I can't imagine anything better than like, the feeling after winning a war, right?
100%.
So like that's essential. That's how I would see it too. And a lot of people don't grasp that concept is like, because I teach a networking course, I'm like, the best thing you can do for me my sales team knows that I'm there to be of service to them and my business partners. Even though I'm the face of the business, I tell them all the time, I can't do this without you.
Right.
And so I'm here to serve you. What did I do this week to make your job harder? What can I do this week to make your job easier? And I'm their boss. Right. And I tell them that. And I do that because in the end, I see us crossing the finish line, starting a couple of other businesses together.
Yeah.
And me being of service to them, and I learned this from Jocko Willink. He had a great book. It's called The Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Me being of service to them ultimately is going to be the best feeling of all because I have earned their respect. And by the way, you and I, we're the boss. We don't need any fucking respect. No one in your company needs to give you an award. No one needs to tell me I'm good at my job. Yeah. My job now as the leader is to what? To heap praise. If you ever meet Ty Lopez, he sits there in a crowd full of people and he's just heaping praise. This guy's the best at this. This guy's the best. He does this all day long because he's Ty Lopez. He doesn't need any more praise. He's got all the praise. And that's something I had to learn is like as the leader, I can change how each one of these guys feels and loves working for me because I can give them praise and it costs me nothing to do so.
Here's the thing. Everybody can't be the boss. Everybody can't be at these apex positions. There should be a respect for all classes / castes. There used to be a time when there was, but now it's like everything's looked at as bad, right? Because people suffer from idealism. And I'm gonna blame, to an extent, the Greeks for this in democracy. I'm not a fan of democracy.
Really?
I'm not a fan of democracy. Let's say this is our civilization, right?
Okay.
Let's say it's 100 people. Who the fuck are these people to vote on anything? What do they know? Right? Think about the average person. What do they know? I think it's bizarre for people to complain about certain things, like, say, for instance, school boards or cops or whatever, but they're not doing anything to participate in who's in those positions or lean on them for whatever, and they can. And it's a lot easier to get things done on that level than it is for a president. So these people are not educated in anything, yet they have all these opinions. We have television, news, or whatever, just literally programming you during election time, tugging at your emotions, because that's a very viable tactic for sales, right? And this is all sales. So they're making you upset with bad news, get you to side with whatever political side. And people have no practical information or understanding on politics at all to vote on anything.
Sure.
So a girl tried to bait me into that conversation. Her name was Pearl, just Pearly Things or whatever.
Yeah, Pearl Davis, of course.
Yeah, and it was a fun interview, but it'll never come out. Because it'll never come out. They'll never put it out. She didn't look too good in that. 'Cause I'm just a normal man I'm a normal man of my stature.
Sure.
And I'm a pure representation of it. I don't know what she thought I was. I don't know if she thought that this was a act or she could I would like shit on women or whatever.
Yeah,
but
Pearl, she says a lot of like red pill dogma, and she expects men to like agree with her. But like in her agreeing with her, you're telling a woman she shouldn't be able to vote, which most of the time you would never do anyway.
She did that. She pulled that up.
Of course.
And I said, I agree with her. I said, yeah. But men shouldn't vote either.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody should vote.
Right. So she goes to the extreme, right?
Yeah.
And she does so. And I think there's some people, rightly or wrongly, feel like some of the things she does is disingenuous to just try to get attention. I like Pearl. She's been nothing but nice to me. Again, one of my best friends is Rollo Tomasi. Rollo can't stand Pearl. He can't stand Destiny. He can't stand some of these people. But for me, I'm trying to build a bridge for a lot of these people to have a discussion. But I can absolutely see you having a discussion with Pearl and them not wanting to produce it.
It was fun.
Yeah.
She brings up all of these statistics. I'm like, who funded these studies?
Yeah.
She's like, what?
Yeah.
Who funded these studies?
Right.
She doesn't know. 400 men polled. I'm like, I wasn't polled, so I don't really. You can't just come to me with statistics.
Sure.
You know, here's the thing. If a person has a rational and a practical position on something, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. You are right for you. That's your own personal truth, right? That's the thing. That's the interesting thing about life. It's not black and white. There's a lot of nuance to everything.
Yeah.
And even with morality and ethics, it's not objective. I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah, sure.
What's ethically correct to you or to me is very specific to our lives and who we have to take care of. Especially for a man, it's me first, my family, my tribe, my community, then everybody else after that. You know what I mean? And I think that's the correct position for all men who are in position to provide and protect. That's a divine duty. See, that's where morality should lie. Oh, back to the Greeks. this democracy thing. It's like, no, we're all fair. And if you really think about it, all of these rules were created by weaker men so they can have a shot. Which I understand that. I'm not opposed to that. But I'm like, don't get it fucked up. Y'all calm down sometimes. And here we are, right, in 2024 with our democracy, our robust democracy. And it's really weird. So here it is. If I love and want to provide for, protect, and take care of 2 women, legally I can't do it. But 2 men can legally get married.
Yeah.
And adopt children. Excuse me? Why? Because you assholes voted for it. I read a story about a man who sexually abused, sexually abused a child.
Yeah.
Sexually abused an adult female, went to prison for both, got out, violated his conditions, and as he was going back, he became, in his mind, a woman, a transgender, and they put him in a female prison, and he abused women there.
Yeah.
Why? Because you assholes voted for it. Listen, I'm gonna tell you how deep that problem is. There should never be a sex offender registry. It shouldn't exist. Because if you are a sex offender, you should never get out of prison. Period, point blank. There's no parole date. There's no this many years. Like you're done, right?
We're talking about assault. We're not talking about a couple that fucks in a public place because they can be sex offenders.
That's not an offense.
Yeah, some people are sex offenders because
it's classless.
Yeah, I've seen one where a guy pisses behind a fucking.
That should be taken off of the sex.
Exactly.
That's silly. That's another thing. That's silly that you have something like a physical violent assault on a woman is in the same category as a man pissing in public.
Yeah. It's crazy.
You idiots are voting. I'm not saying everybody, but there's idiots voting for goofy shit like this. I'm not mad at a dictatorship. 10 years, get everything back streamlined, and then y'all can go back and fuck it up in another 20, 30 years.
I've heard this idea before. There's actually a form of government where they had this, where you would elect a guy for 4 years, and then everything he said goes, and at the end they'd kill him. I think that was how it worked. And then another guy would get elected for 4 years. I forgot what it was, but it was like he had 4 years where he was ultimate and complete rule, because it was like, I think the reason why is because it may have been some some ancestral tribe that did this, because the reason why was because at the end of his term, you knew that all he cared about was his tribe, because he's willing to give his life for it. Right. Does that make sense? And so I think that's why they did it. But there's other examples where somebody will have.
I don't necessarily. Let's figure out a council of people that we're assessing, we're scrutinizing. Like, these people seem okay, like they really want the advancement of our nation, and then they choose. And they scrutinize and they test and they do all of the things to try to determine a leader, a dictator, or whatever you want to call it, that, you know, we think is going to have our best interests at heart. Maybe he's already coming with all of the things that he doesn't need the money or whatever the fuck. And we pick somebody out of that to really get us streamlined. And here's another issue, kind of good, but kind of bad with politics, is bureaucracy. Nothing ever changes. It takes forever. Everything is voted on by this guy, by that guy, by this feeling, that feeling, yay, nay, and nothing ever changes, which is somewhat of a good thing if you're thinking about tyrants, right? Yeah. Like tyrants running shit, they can't. You know, Trump saw that when he was in office, that he couldn't get a lot of shit done. Correct. Because it's like, fuck, I can't get anything done. They're not voting for this, voting for that. So we don't have a nation of a king, right? It's by the people, but fuck, the people are weird. The people are doing some weird things. And I mentioned that thing earlier about the homosexual guys. I don't have an issue against gays. I just don't give a fuck. Yeah. I don't care what anybody chooses to do behind closed doors. I just don't want to see it. Yeah. I don't want to see straight people kissing in public either. Sure. I don't want to see none of that shit.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because if you go back and look at the Founding Fathers when they came up, originally the Federalist Papers, John Jay, Thomas Jefferson, and then later on the Constitution, when you go back and read it, if you really read it and look at it today, it's like if you really don't like Joe Biden, it actually protects you from Joe Biden, even though he's the president. 100%. And if you don't like Donald Trump, it protects you from Donald Trump. 100%. The point was having 3 branches of government was to create a quagmire so that government would move slowly and so that people could stop and say, hey, this goes against what the Constitution says. So a lot of times when you see the wrong person being elected, there are mechanisms in place from keeping things from just getting too far out of control. Even a great example would be the president can commit troops in a foreign war, but the Congress has to vote on it within 100 days and can pull funding for that war. And so even though the president is the commander in chief, the Congress and the Senate still handle the money. So there's all these mechanisms in place. And in that, it's brilliant because what our founding fathers understood was that men were flawed and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's why I was saying before, like for having a certain term to be able to do this, to clean these things up, it might work.
I think the initial framework was pretty legit. Right?
Yeah.
It was pretty legit. There was enough space in it for people who weren't considered free to eventually have freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, it was enough headspace for men to become women, right?
Sure.
So it is what it is. However, this is what we're 300-400 years later. It's a lot more people in this country.
Yeah.
It's time for a revision. It's time to revisit these things. And it's interesting because people hold this thing as such a holy paper, this Constitution, right? But a lot of these systems and policies are not very constitutional. The framework of our country now, or the vibe of our country, is not what they set it up to be, a place that separated church and state, things of that nature. They openly say this is a Christian nation. That's not what they wanted. That's not what they intended. We need to have a sit down and let's rework this thing.
You know what? One of the things I do think is ingenious about our Constitution that makes us different from, like, say, Mexico. So there's in the United States, every chain of command has to end with a civilian. So like say in Pakistan, you actually had a general who was also president at the same time. That doesn't happen in the US.
Right.
The sitting general. But you also had the federal government could easily just trump the state police anytime they wanted to. In the United States, we have the 10th Amendment. So what you'll see is Texas did it right and California did it wrong. And what happened after that? What did we see? Anybody who lives in Texas, hundreds of thousands of Californians leaving California to move to Texas because they screwed up when it came to their homeless problem and they screwed up when it came to their taxation and they elected the wrong guy to become their governor. And so because of that, I do like the fact that like Louisiana, Mississippi, like these different places can try, it's 50 different experiments, including Puerto Rico, 51 different experiments that we can do to see this form of government works and this form of government doesn't.
Right.
When DeSantis tried to reopen Florida during the pandemic, what should have happened, according to the liberals, is a massive flood of deaths that never ended up happening.
Right.
And so we don't go back and then say, well, if DeSantis was correct, then what does that mean Newsom was doing? Like, and it's funny because we should, like, you as a conscious human should say, if DeSantis did this and it worked, then that means what Newsom was doing was defrauding you. And so therefore we should hold him accountable. But instead
100%.
we're about to make him, like, if you guys know, if Biden steps down, Newsom's the front runner.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's just one of these things where, like, I think one of the great things about this country is that you can move to a place. If you don't like the politics of Los Angeles, move to Orange County.
Exactly. You said 51 different experiments, but it's a lot more than that because within each state, people who don't know, you guys are so bent out of shape over the federal government. Fuck them. They have very little impact on your lives. You have your state, your county, your city, right? So it's, each state has several governments within it, right?
Yeah.
The fact that marijuana is legal here and not across the street, it should tell you a lot right there, right? There is a level of sovereignty to each district or city or county, but people don't realize that. They just ignore that and they just look at Biden, Trump, right? And I'm like this, this is embarrassing. When I couldn't even watch the debate. It was not even entertaining. It was like, this is two old men arguing. Like, they're way too old. The energy's weird, right? Biden is literally too old, right? He's patched together. Trump, he's not even prepared. He knows that this guy can barely talk, right? It's like, nobody's impressive. Blow my socks off, right? I don't give a fuck if it's just rhetoric. Somebody come up here and be a good leader, a good representation.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah, the standards are very low now.
You have to think about this, right? So if you were to think of like a Colombian cartel, it's not that the guy who runs the cartel becomes a sociopath when he runs the cartel. It was because he was a sociopath that got him to that position. Right. And so when you think about being president of the United States, what do you have to do? You have to pander to people to get money to get to that point. And when you think about politicians like Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden, they've given so many favors to so many people that finally at the end, Biden calls in all these favors that he's been given out since 1977 and goes, okay, now you're the president. And it's like, but it's too old. It's too late. He shouldn't have done it at this point. And then you look at Trump, which obviously, I mean, I think most of us would agree, Trump would make a better president than Biden at this point. But we still have a guy who was like trying to impress a woman by showing her top secret documents so he could fuck. Do you guys remember that recording?
Yeah.
Like he did fuck Stormy. I know during the debate they were talking about this, and I don't blame the president. You're having fun, and he fucked Stormy Daniels while his wife was pregnant. But he did fuck her. Like she signed an NDA. She didn't sign an NDA because they played chess.
Right.
Because they fucked. And he didn't pay her, by the way. He didn't pay her. He paid her to shut up. Yeah. But we have a president who's, filed for bankruptcy several times. I think Trump has a lot of great ideas, but it's it's not that his ideas I don't like or him personally I don't like. My issue is you're telling me there's 330 million people in this country,
this is the guy.
And this is the one you picked? You're telling me you could not have found a single 4-star general who has raised 4 kids, takes his, you know what I want? I want a guy who has been a general, run a $100 million company, and is willing to go downstairs with a shotgun to protect his family. Why can't that guy run for president?
Because democracy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's fair. Everyone gets to choose, right? So what you have is Trump won when he won because he's more popular.
Yeah, of course.
Straight away, right? The more you see somebody, the more you like them, you feel like you know them, they're speaking to you, they get it. Trump is funny. So let's talk about race and politics, right?
Yeah.
Traditionally, in very modern times, black people arbitrarily vote Democrat. And typically white people vote Republican.
Yes.
Typically, when there's a white Republican president, black people think he's racist, right? Typically, when there's a white Democratic president, black people think he's good for them. That's never the case. I'm not saying the racist part is not the case, but the Democrat being good for black people is never the case, ever. In fact, they have been extremely detrimental to black families from the 80s on up. Biden, Clinton, all of them, they've implemented some things that were just egregious, right? We can get into that in a minute, but this is what I want to talk about. So Trump, let's look at Trump. I'm one who can openly accept criticism or redirection, but I'm going to redirect myself if I find myself behaving in a way that's not what I look at as ideal or of a superior man's mentality. So I remember I'm agreeing with people like, yeah, Trump's a racist, fuck him. Then I had to say like, wait, why am I saying this? Let me do some research, right? And the things that they was putting on him to be racist, I'm like, okay. One of them was an interview that he did about Charlottesville, right? Lo and behold, I find the whole C-SPAN interview, not many views, 20,000 or so views. And what they chopped up and put out is not what he said.
Sure.
Right? He was just being political and like, look, there's good people that want to keep this fucking statue, there's good people that want to take it down. Everyone has a right to deal with it, to talk about it, right? I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said.
He said there's good people on both sides, and they took that out of context.
There's good people on this side.
Because that one woman got hit by a car the next day.
Yeah. So I watched him. I went down a rabbit hole. I watched him, like, just people just denounce the Ku Klux Klan. He's like, all right, I denounce him. He said he did all the things over and over. Shit that I wouldn't have did. I'm like, fuck you, I ain't doing that, right? But he did it, right? Not only did he do it, he actually, as a president, he implemented policy that was actually good for black people, right? And it's only for political gain, but so what? I'll take it, right?
Yeah, if anyone thinks Lyndon Johnson loved Martin Luther King, you're a fool. Like, that wasn't happening either.
Who do you think is the original domestic terrorist in this country since the inception of this country?
I mean, if you really want to talk about, if you ask King George, his name is George Washington. That would be the original domestic terrorist.
The group. But you're right.
What year would we talking about?
Yeah, the late 1700s.
Original domestic terrorists would be
Ku Klux Klan.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Nobody's touched them in 400 years.
Got it, yeah.
Trump classified them as a terrorist organization. Now, when a group has that tag on them, it's the worst of the worst.
Of course.
You go to jail under that tag, you're never getting out. Obama didn't touch that. Nobody touched that, right? But he did. He's not a good racist, right? This is a New York City billionaire that hangs out with famous people. He don't give a fuck about skin color.
And before 2008 was a Democrat.
But nobody's paying attention to these things. Nobody's even doing any due diligence, any research on these candidates. And then you pull a little string for Biden, it's egregious. he said overtly racist things. He
Yes.
said he don't want his children mixing
Yes.
in this
In
jungle
1977,
environment.
he said, "I do
Right.
not want my children to go to school in
He
this
wanted
jungle
to,
environment."
He wanted to keep segregation
Yes.
strong.
He also said that homosexuals should not be able to have top secret government clearance. That is the Joe Biden you voted for.
And
yes.
then his mentor, who just died a couple years ago, was like a Grand Wizard.
Yeah, Strom Thurmond, is that you're talking about?
Yeah. So this guy, fuck Biden, right? 100%, fuck him with a dog's dick, right? But anyway, nobody's doing any research. Nobody's doing their due diligence on these guys. I mean, it's not like the things that they're saying on TV right now is meaningful, is holding you. It's not satiating anybody, right? They're not saying shit. This is the problem with democracy. Y'all are being marketed to like low-level tactics, and you're basing your decision off that. You're not even basing your decision off of that. You're basing your decision off of who your family voted for, right? We're Democrats.
Most likely, yeah.
I don't even like the fact that people are so quick to put themselves in these red box, blue box. I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative. When we break down what these words really mean, none of y'all are any of these things. You feel me? So it's just words. It's just people talking, and words are changing meanings like rapidly, which is very problematic because we live in a civilized world in which there's rules and codes and words have meaning. But now they don't have meaning.
Yeah.
When people are talking and having discussions, they'll say, well, what this means to me, it shouldn't. Let's look this word up. Like I'm on that side, right? Let's be factual and exact so we're all on the same page. But for a person to say, like, I remember when Obama was in, and I was a trainer, and I was training the girl. She's a friend of mine. And she's like, fuck him. He's going to take our guns away. You know, I'm a conservative. I'm like, you be fucking mad dudes. You're not a conservative. And I was like, I waited like a couple of days. I'm like, hey, you ever go to the gun range? Her name's, I ain't gonna say her name. She's like, no. I'm like, oh. Because the other day you was talking about Obama taking the guns away. Like, you don't even have a gun. Like, why do you care? They don't care. It's avatars that they're voting for an idea. And these ideas are not even noble. This is what I tell black people to do. We are 14% of the population in America, right? Every political cycle, every election cycle, the margins of victory is 1 to 3%, give or take. Raise a thing. Whoever black people vote for is gonna win collectively. Black people need to be on code. I know y'all ain't, or we ain't, but we should be on code. We choose somebody. I'll take that responsibility to say, hey, here's the thing. America, we're not voting for anybody this cycle, so y'all can feel that impact. Y'all gonna feel it, right? So we let one pass when we don't participate. Now, next cycle, I'm gonna sit down with both sides. Whoever got the best promises for me is gonna benefit people like me. We're gonna vote for you, but I need it in writing. We need contracts, all of the shit, right? I'm simplifying this, but this is a serious thing that could, at least for black people, because a lot of black people think that voting is all of that, right? It's only all of that if a group of people is on code. Now, here's the thing. What made Trump feel racist was strategies that had to be employed. If you're running for president, you better fucking win, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna waste a lot of people's money, so let's win. So what works on that side, the Republican side? There are tactics of dog whistling, right?
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're here. Yeah.
Doesn't mean you are racist, but you got to do what you got to do to get that base, right? So there's groups, there's religious groups, and there's white nationalist groups that have big numbers that can help you win an election.
Yeah.
And this was implemented by a man who was racist, Richard Nixon, but I don't give a fuck. Do what you got to do. I don't give a fuck. You're an old ass dude from that era. I expect you to be racist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't bother me. But anyway, it was called the Southern strategy that he employed. It was brilliant because at that time when the Democrats, they were the super racist side. That was called, y'all can Google this, Democrats was called the party for the Ku Klux Klan.
Yes.
The party of the Ku Klux Klan, right? So the Democrats, right? So Martin Luther King was a Republican, just putting that out there. But I'm not like advocating either. So anyway, when it got to a point, because people over time get smarter and become more ethical and like, yo, this is not cool. So they had to abandon a lot of their rhetoric. They had to abandon the whole segregation thing. They had to abandon a lot of shit. So a lot of racist people were like, I don't know what to do. So Nixon had a brilliant strategy at like dog whistling to them to get them riled up. So that's why it feels like whoever's the president on the Republican side, it feels like they're racist.
Yeah, so
because there's racist people that's supporting them.
So I've explained this before. So we'll take Charlottesville, what happened there, and then also the situation. You remember where there were immigrants coming over the border and their children were being separated from them, and then there was discussion about how do we get the parents back with the children. And Donald Trump, I don't believe Donald Trump is racist. I don't think he hates anyone. But what I do believe is that he is aware that racist people vote for him, and so he knows there's words I can say to keep those people to continue to vote for me, while at the same time appealing to the base. And I don't think he did a great enough job of appealing to the base in the last election. I do think there were some instances where he went more conservative, and it didn't make sense. Like, you're the incumbent president and you're Republican. You need to start saying some like pseudo moderate liberal shit to get the middle to vote for you. And I don't feel like anyone could ever get through to him with that shit. And so when he said the stuff at Charlottesville, he didn't say like he didn't say it was good what happened, but he did say there were good people on both sides, which is something you would say if you knew that there were people who hated Jews and hated blacks who were voting for you and almost exclusively voting for you. And if you said those things, then you could at least keep their vote. And so that's what it felt like where he did that. But I don't think he internally is racist. I don't think you can be that gregarious, successful, extroverted, and have that many friends.
It's not good for business.
Of course not. Like, I watch him with Oprah Winfrey, and I'm like, they're genuinely friends. Like, I don't believe any of it was an issue. And again, Donald Trump was a Democrat up until 2008. He was raising money for Hillary Clinton before then. So it is one of these things that's really interesting when you see it. But yeah, from a political standpoint, when you have an incumbent president like that, you would expect him to go more towards the middle, and he didn't. And I feel like that kind of hurt him.
Well, that's because he's not a politician, so he he doesn't have that polish, and he doesn't listen to anybody because he's his own man.
That is true. He doesn't listen to anybody.
And in that position, like you gotta like understand the best practices, at least that. Still move how you want to move, and it's a lot to learn from him, like for future wannabe presidents, right? Get popular, appeal to the people, right? And be your fucking self. Like, one thing that's appealing about him to most people is the fact that he's his own man. At least he appears to be his own man, you know? I saw a video of him from before politics, before he even was considering it. One that they tried to say he was racist. It was in New Jersey when he had his casinos out there. And he was testifying before Congress to block Native Americans from opening casinos in New Jersey, right? And because they get a lot of government, all the tax breaks, funding, so on and so forth. So anyway, he's like, look, this chief is in my office telling me he's XYZ Indian. And I said, look, buddy, I'm more Indian than you. And I'm not Indian at all, right? Because there was white guys just saying that they were Indian, right? You ever heard the term $5 Indian?
No.
Very interesting, right? So back when, like way back in the day, when they were like, all right, damn, we kind of fucking these Indians up, we need to give a little reparations, right? All right, so here's a form. Y'all fill this out. People who don't even read English and shit like that, fill this out. It was $5 to submit this. But they were doing it themselves, right? The white people back then. So a lot of them, that's why so many white people that say, oh, I'm 188th. You know what I'm saying? That's where that comes from. So the term was called $5 Indians. They created this system to get paid for the natives to get reparations, but they was getting it.
Sure.
And they were manipulating the system and opening casinos, even like Italian mobsters and shit like that. He talked about all of that, and he was just trying to block all of that shit. But they would use that to say, that's why he went after that one chick, Pocahontas, is part of that, like, you
AOC?
No. There's a white chick.
Okay.
What was her name? You know what I'm talking about? He called her Pocahontas. And they're like, oh my God. And she's not even Indian.
Yeah.
She said, it's like, if you don't look Indian, you're not Indian. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You are what you look like. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's just a funny world that we live in. I personally don't give a fuck about politics. I give a fuck about making money, right? I give a fuck about my community. All that other shit is entertainment as far as I'm concerned.
So maybe not democracy, but you do agree in capitalism.
Yeah, I'm a capitalist.
Yeah. The thing is with capitalism is because we continue to incentivize people to do the best for themselves and their family, we employ more people. It's just one of the crazy things when I started running my own business and I just saw how many people's lives I've changed who were either clients or worked for me, and then realized how much money my business spent on improvements and how many people that were employed by them. And then I saw that my expenses were write-offs under the tax code. I was like, oh, this country actually does get it when it comes to that.
I'm okay with taxes, how it's set up. And people complain about California, but I'm like, bro, get you a guy who's really good at mitigating these tax liabilities because these codes were written for us, literally. And if I'm not mistaken, that's in every state, right? Because we are creating jobs and services that they don't want to do. The government don't want to do.
Yeah.
Even like one of my friends is a big time government contractor, and he shows me these contracts. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
The contracts are crazy. I'm gonna tell people one thing right here in America: like, if you're broke, you're lazy.
Yeah.
If you're broke, shake out of it. It's a psychological condition being broke because there's enough money to go around. They will give you money. When in 2020, around that time, you know how many people I know that bought homes with PPP loans?
Yeah.
They're not in trouble. They're not doing anything illegal. There's so many programs, it'll make your head spin. There's programs for short dudes. There's programs for everything you can think of, right? They're giving money away. Here's the thing. Just like a job, right? Customer service. How I look at the government is not like some powerful entity. It's just a bunch of fucking dudes with jobs. A dude with a job don't really care about the company, okay? So these people are somewhat gatekeepers of what? They're just trying to look out for their best interest. They don't really give a fuck about everything else, if you really think about it. So there's so many systems implemented to, I'm not gonna say abuse our system, but just to take. You can, right? It's not just the information is not just thrown out there like freely. You got to go and look for it, right? And people look at people teaching courses and all that shit as scams, but like, listen to these people. Maybe it's something to it, right? I'm telling y'all right now, I know so many people that became multimillionaires over the past, we're in 4 or 5 years doing internet shit. You know what I'm saying? Teaching something.
Yeah.
There's people who will take a course, let's say credit repair, who never repaired anybody's credit. He'll take a course from you, 3-month, 2-month, 1-month course, right? He knows all of the shit, and he's talking to people like, yo, I'm gonna do this for you, do that, whatever. I'm gonna teach you how to fix other people's credit. People want to learn how to make money, so they're gonna pay this guy. This guy's gonna become rich. He's never fixed a credit in his life, right? And he's successful, and it's not a scam. He's teaching you something that you can go and implement, and it'll work, right? So people are so buried under the rubble of slave mentality that anybody that's successful or appears to be successful and they're speaking to you, you write them off as they're a criminal.
Yeah.
You're a scam artist, but you're broke. Give it a shot. Yeah, what do you have to lose?
We're scam artists, but you went through traditional Prussian education system believing that they were going to help you. The funny thing is, a couple things. Ty Lopez, he has a saying, goes, I think I have created more millionaires than anyone on the internet. And I don't know if that's true, but he's helped me make 8 figures because in my company in revenue because of the things that I learned from Ty, in part because of what Ty's done. And the other thing with Ty, and the reason why I use him as an example, because he was kind of the first. He was kind of the first one to do $100 million in sales for 67 steps and run that ad. Here I am in my garage. Ty spends, I believe, I'm going to ask him tomorrow. I'm going to a show tomorrow. $200,000 a year on continuing education, buying other people's courses. When we started this company, I was like, okay, cool, man. We're selling a course, and my partners, all we do now is buy courses, and we travel to different places to hear what Cole Gordon, Taylor Welsh, and all these different guys have to say. I listen to everything my man Dan Fleischman has to say, all these different people, and I learn from them. Right. Okay. I was like I said, I was with Wes Watson a couple weeks ago. He said this out loud, so I can repeat it. He has to spend $1.3 million a month in write-offs because he has figured out an incredibly automated way to do between $3 and $4 million a month in revenue. It's just crazy numbers when you think about this. Right. If you like understand, remember what I said before about the military training instructor yelling at the guy? If you believe that one man can pass along information to another and help him become better, then when you see people like that, you're like, I want to learn from him. 100%. Just being in the room, just like, and you know this, I'm sure you've had dinner. Like if you go to dinner with like, Dan Fleischman won't let anyone pay for dinner. If you go, so many times I've taken out my card and he's just like, oh yeah, it's comp. Like, sure, Dan, I'm sure it's comp. Yeah. Same thing with when you're out with Wes, when you're out with any of these guys, they want to pay for dinner before you can. If you sit there and just shut the fuck up for an hour, you will learn, you will hear them talk about things that will make you tens of millions of dollars. but it's so far outside of your reality because you were brought up in a sheep, slave, collectivist mindset that you don't even think you could possibly learn from these people. So if you believe you can learn from these people, then you want to be around them. And I went to, you remember 67 Steps, the course that Tai Lopez made? It's a 10-year anniversary. It was yesterday. And we went to his house, the house with the Lamborghini and the bookshelf. We went to the house and he gave a speech to us. And the room was filled with so many people worth over $100 million. It was crazy. And you're in there and you realize if these people have this much money and they're buying courses, but you think of courses are a scam, it's the same people like when you talk about people you know and they're like, no, man, you're name dropping. No, I'm not name dropping. I'm trying to teach you a lesson that someone told me. That's like Bill Belichick teaching a lesson that Bill Parcells told him and causing it name drop. It's not name dropping. It's like that's how you actually learn lessons. Does that make sense? The lessons that I've learned from Patrick Bet-David, from Adam Sosnick, the lessons I've learned from Justin Waller, from you, from Wes Watson, from Ryan Stewman, from all these guys I looked up to, from Ryan Pineda, all these guys I look up. There's all these little pieces I take. Even Grant Cardone. I've never met Grant Cardone, but I watch some of the things he does in some of his podcasts, and I love that. I'm going to take a piece of that. If you understand that, you have an abundance mindset.
Well,
if you see those people and you're like, you're name dropping, or here's the other one, you're trying too hard, you have a scarcity mindset, and you're never going to grow. Yeah.
Well, you exemplify what it means to have a growth mindset. Right. Most people have a fixed mindset. People tell me, they said, even like in the dating podcasting sphere, which I'm not in, but they kind of put me in that for a hot second. You can't listen to him. He's a natural. I'm like, what? You should listen to me. I know what I'm doing. Right. Natural or not, I'm successful at these things. Right. So, and here's the thing. I had to like, first of all, there's no man so beautiful that women just want to hang out with them just because of their looks. That's weird. That's weird. Right? If you can't provide a safe place for I mean, we have a good friend in here, Carla. You know, this is my dog. I love her to death. She's partied with me in Miami, like all over, and it's her and a bunch of beautiful women. We're on yachts, and the women are safe.
And they're safe because Carla looks like she could stab someone. Carla looks strong as shit.
She know what's up.
Carla looks like she could. I was joking, like Carla was going to pick me up in her arms and drag me out somewhere.
Because it's like a real man is going to provide that space. Like, I figured these things out. It's not about me. It's about my people, right? These people, what you said, they have this collective mindset. I'm telling y'all, look, deprogram yourself. Humble yourself. I talk about I'm all right with the natural state of things, right? So if we had this kind of divine leader, this dictator, right? I'm all right with it. He must be a great man to get to this point. So I'm gonna check him out. There's people in that these people are following, you, me, whomever. Get into a program. If we have programs, get into it. Just see what it's about. If it ain't shit, it ain't shit. Everybody has a low tier offer. You know what I'm saying? Get in and see if you can learn some shit. I read books. Sometimes I'll read the back and I got the book figured out. I can be in your low tier offer and figure out the whole thing. Maybe some of y'all can do that. Like, you're smart. People they give themselves no credit. I give myself a lot of credit. I figured a lot of things out in life, and I didn't have, I went to college, but I dropped out. I didn't have all of the right things in place. But the fact that things weren't in place was perfect for me because it made me gritty. It made me figure things out. And I just honor the fact that I came from a deficit and climbed my way out of that. It made me so strong. So when there's people that already started at a baseline and I started here, I love that. Man, how you let me pass you, bro? But I understand why, because you had no sense of urgency to get from a bad place. You was already in an okay place. So that's what these people need to do. Y'all are in an okay place and fuck that place. Well, if you're cool with it, cool, because it's not the worst thing in the world. The poorest person in America is richer than most people in the world. You feel me? So that's okay. It's okay. I know me, for instance, and you, we do a lot of things for other people, providing information for other people. Like, listen, if you take my shit and it works for you, great. I love that. But if you don't, I don't care. Like, my life moves on. My money does not come from coaching. Like, it does now, but I can stop coaching. It doesn't affect me, right? So these people, I don't know, they're looking at it like, oh, you just want to make money. Like, don't you? But yeah, I'm gonna make money because my information is valuable. I'm not a regular guy, straight away. So yeah, people gotta deprogram themselves. You remember 300, the second one?
Yeah.
When Xerxes went into that lake to just cleanse himself and he came out a god king. Y'all can do that, right? It's a protocol of things. We We barely talk, but we're really cool. But guarantee we are in alignment with a lot of things that we do on a regular
Yeah,
basis.
because you have an abundance mindset.
Right. So we're both training early. We're both watching our diet.
Sure.
We're both doing the sauna. We're both doing a lot of things to suffer, right?
Yeah.
But things that are good for you. It just makes you so strong and so resilient, right? There's a lot of things that we're doing constantly to constantly bathe ourselves from being normal
Yes.
to be God kings.
Now, consider if you're not one of those people, everything you and I are doing is going to seem disingenuous and try hard. So again, like consider when someone goes to the gym and they do the same workout over and over again, and you give them something they don't like. I don't particularly like hamstring curls. I don't really like military press. Like there's a few workouts I don't enjoy. I really don't like back extensions. So there's a couple that I don't like to do. If I'm a personal trainer and I see these are weak spots for you, you have bad posture because you don't do any lower body, et cetera, whatever. When I make you do those things, meaning to become successful, it's always going to feel awkward. And the next day your body's going to hurt. So when someone gives you advice to do something that works, like for instance, a guy who's terrified of approaching women, when I make you go approach women, you're not going to feel good. You're going to feel awkward, but just know that you're not successful. So if I tell you anything that's going to make you successful, it's always going to feel awkward.
Right.
It's never going to feel genuine, and you're going to feel try hard. You show your life on social media. There's a lot of introverted people. It's like, no, man, that's too try hard. You know why I show my life on social media? It's funny. Alex Hormozy said it best. He goes, I didn't want to be on social media, but then I went viral for a podcast I did, and I realized the level of power that I had from going on social media. And so I realized it was my responsibility to do this. And then we all watched what Dan Bilzerian did, going to 32 million, 38 million followers on Instagram. And when he did this, it's like he even explained, he's like, social media allowed me to show status with low perceived effort, right? And it worked fantastically well for him. So, and he's a pretty introverted guy. So you ask yourself the question is like, is this thing really try hard? Well, the try hard guy took your girl. The try hard guy is in better shape than you. The try hard guy took your clients. The try hard guy has a bigger business than you. That's what the try hard guy did. And then the guy who's the slave, the sheep, he wrote negative comments about Ty Lopez.
Yeah.
That's what he needed, or about me, or whomever, or about you, or about Wes, or about whoever. He did that because he's a slave, again, to the mindset that not only are these people not helping, that no one can help. Like, it's very rare that I see a guy who's going to talk shit who then took a different course and was like, but this course saved my life.
Doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen because you're not open to the idea of improvement.
It's weird that the term try hard is negative.
Yeah,
I think
isn't
that's
it weird?
You should try hard.
Yeah.
Unless you study the Tao Te Ching, and
Yeah.
you understand the ways of Lao Tzu, which you don't.
Yes.
Because you don't read, right?
Yeah.
You only read comments, and you post negative ones, and you read the negative comments that you read, and you think you did something. You know how many times people, like, I was like, yeah, whatever, fuck you, fuck off. Oh, I got under your skin. It's like, is this what this is about?
Yeah.
You think you're under my this is a flex for you?
Yeah.
Like, your friends are probably embarrassed by you.
Yeah.
You probably don't have any friends. You can't have a girlfriend, bro, carrying on like this. There's times, it hasn't been a long time, but it's been a long time ago since I did this, but somebody will be fucking with me, and I'll DM them, and I'll just lean into them, just troll them. You can't there's no words that anybody can say that can hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And if you want to try to hurt me with words, I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm better.
Yeah.
Right? And they'd be so uncomfortable. Like, you're supposed to be professional. Am I?
Yeah.
Wow. Right? So it's funny. It's fascinating. See, here's the thing. I perceive myself as the most capable at whatever the fuck I'm doing. You feel me? So I'm trying to teach people how to do that.
Yeah.
You know, my mentorship program is dope, right? We have strategies of making money, but what I lean into is personal development, it's self-mastery.
Yeah.
Right? Mastering self, and it's just reality, and it's dealing with the naturalistic way of life and people finding where they are. One thing I do like about Lao Tzu and the book, the Tao Te Ching, is it talks about, like, water, for instance.
Sure.
It takes form of whatever it's in. It's not trying hard. It's like, if the cup is like this, I'm sitting right there. That cup break, the water doesn't disappear. It finds the places where it's most comfortable at, or it's most useful at, right? And that's what we all can do. That's a whole nother philosophical odyssey that I can take people on, but I'm just trying to get them on the baseline levels first, right? Before going to that high level stuff. So one thing about what I like about you is you and I do things on a different scale in regards of what we're teaching, but we're teaching, you know, we're helping men be better men, be more superior men. I like the notion of all men being formidable and dangerous.
Sure.
Why? Because I'm the type of person who I'm not afraid of anything or anybody. And I'm also not fucking with nobody. Because I know that in combat, you can't look at somebody and tell.
You can't, yeah.
Right? So I have that kind of respect for men. And people, it's the guys that don't that are assholes. It's the guys that can't fight trying to fight. It's the guys that, you know, they have no idea of what it feels like to scrap for 30 seconds. That's fucking with people, road raging and shit. I think road raging, things like that is the weirdest shit in the world. It's like, yo, I don't know you. I wasn't trying to give you a bad day. Sorry. You know what I'm saying? But people are so emotionally volatile. It's wild. It's wild. And I'm sure you can attest to this. When you're a person who do the work and do the things to, you know, always rise above emotions and be practical about situations, it's bizarre when you see people that they're just not. It's like, damn, how'd you get to this point in life without checking these things?
Yeah.
You know?
You realize that's the majority of people.
It's the majority of people.
And it's, we just, again, we have created this softer and softer place where, if people want to have a discussion about, say, politics or trans rights or something like that, you just understand that your ancestors, like say in the 1850s, were worried about food to eat. And so because of that, they did not have the luxury of having, I read one statistic, I thought it was amazing. Before the year 1850, 50% of the human population died before the age of 5. That is unbelievable when there's 100 billion people been on this planet and half of them died before the age of 5. That's unbelievable. The other one I wanted to bring up was this concept where as a man, you used to be able to have a good job, make a good living, have a wife and have kids and be able to afford a house. Throughout history, you were talking about being a naturalist. Throughout history, about 40% of men and 80% of women have reproduced. And we know because we can look at X and Y chromosome, we can see how many of them made it through. There was one period, I forget, I want to say 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, where it was 17 women for every one man. And this had to do with the concept of surplus men. And there's always been surplus men. There's surplus men now. I'd say the bottom third of men are like surplus to women, meaning women just are not interested in them. And my whole message to those men would be like, if you do nothing, you can go the rest of your life and never have sex. Trust me, it's not difficult. You can do it. You can go the rest of your life and never become wealthy. It won't just find you. No one is coming to save you, right? And when you understand that concept, because you were talking before about like the government handouts might make you think someone is coming to save you, right? You being pretty all your life or you being coddled all your life, you might believe that someone is coming to save you. But if you don't, remember, only 40% of men throughout history have reproduced. So there's a place for you to be weeded out of evolutionary and genetic history if you don't actually wake up and start taking some kind of action. It's all set up for you. For most men, for a few men to be alpha and the rest to be beta, the world is already set up that way. For me, it's just like, I can't think of anything worse. I'm going to be on this planet for 80, 90, maybe 100 years. And while I'm on there, I'm going to make my mark. And in 100 years after that, we'll all be just as dead as one another. 100%. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to make my mark while I can now, maybe help as many people as I can. And then while I'm here, and then when I'm gone, I'm gone. So from that standpoint, it's like, it would be so easy to do nothing. But when you do nothing, your place, especially as a man, if you're a beautiful woman, this is a completely different conversation we're having. But as a man, there's this place that is just set for you. It is obesity and poverty. 100%. It is ignorance. It's right there. And it's a river that you're just flowing down. And if you don't take any action, you just go down the river. And nothing stops you from just going down this river of obesity, ignorance, poverty, and scarcity. It's right there for you. And all of you will automatically end up, by the way, virginity too, abstinence, incels. That's where you end up if you don't take action to do that. If you're a really beautiful woman, or if you're an extremely wealthy guy, or incredibly good looking, or if you won an Academy Award, or if you won an NBA championship or something like that, forget what I'm saying, because the world is going to open up for you. Opportunities are going to be brought to you. The other 99% of men, that's not what's going to happen. But this is something, I've heard you talk about this before. Women reward these concepts like aggression, assertiveness, and ambition, right? If they continue, and when women are surveyed and when you look at women's practices with who they choose to have sex with, they choose those attributes. Those are the attributes that propagate a patriarchy. If you believe there is a patriarchy, I tend to believe it's more of a meritocracy, but if you believe it's a patriarchy, it's so funny that women will continue to have sex with men who are more aggressive, more assertive, have higher testosterone, and are more ambitious. But if women keep having sex with men who have those attributes, then their children also have those attributes, and they will continue. So now consider, I'm a man, and I'm sitting here, and I'm trying to figure out what kind of man I want to be, and I keep seeing the woman of my dreams reward this aggressive, assertive, ambitious man with sex. Eventually, that's what I'm going to choose to do. Now you have two genders. One of them has 17 times as much as testosterone as the other, and that gender is being rewarded for being more aggressive and assertive. Of course, 90% of Fortune 500 companies are going to be run by men. Of course, the president of the United States is almost always is going to be a man. Of course, if women keep rewarding patriarchal attributes, of course we're going to end up in a patriarchy. There's no other option except to do that. And then finally, it's like, well, then women like, well, we want equal rights. I'm like, you wanting those equal rights, which is fine, you wanting those equal rights can only exist within a bubble that was created by violent men. It can only exist in that. As long as you remember that, I'm fine.
Yeah.
As long as you give dad the big piece of chicken, as long as you just remember the fact that we exist in this society and that the Chinese can't invade our West Coast because we have nuclear subs that were built by men. As long as you understand that, that we have stealth aircraft that were built by men, as long as you understand that, then I'm fine. You can ask for whatever rights you want.
And these, see, it's interesting. You was cooking just now, bro. Straight up. That's the natural order of things without us even talking about. I don't even have to say naturalism versus idealism, right? Because it always will pan out to be what it's supposed to be, right? The most strongest, the most dominant is going to sit at the top with the most of whatever he wants. And that's how it should be. Respect it, right? So people got to understand that. Now, with that being said, is interesting. So there's a lot of men who can potentially be those dominant alpha males in their worlds, their communities, and they're not, because they're being programmed. They're doing a beautiful job, evil job, but an excellent job of programming potentially strong men to be weak. And I say potential because I don't believe in good and evil or good and bad listen. Everyone has potential to be whatever, right? They're a blank slate. I do tend to lean on nurture versus nature in regards to who you become, right? What you're around, your circumstances, what you're taught, that's going to be what you are, right? So people have the capacity to be impactful, to be great, but there's certain decisions that you got to make, If I want to learn something, I got to go study. It doesn't just come to me in a dream, right? Hell, if I want to play the lotto, if I want to hit the lotto, I got to play it. It's so simple. Life is literally what you make it. And I've said this before, and I'll always say this, but one's destiny is not predetermined. It is based on the decisions that you make every single day. And those little tiny things, those little decisions creates big outcomes, right? I'm sure you are familiar with the law of this particular law escapes me, but it's as above, so below, as within, so without. So basically, it's a concept of all things are the same.
It's off the Four Agreements. I'm trying to remember which book that's from, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so you look at life on a molecular or just the molecular level of existence to the most biggest cosmic
micro to the macro,
right, it's all the same. All systems of efficiency and proficiency are the same across the board, the big or the small, so, and we are big and we're small. Like, look at this in a philosophical sense, but this is also literal, right? We're human beings created of atoms and all of these different ingredients, right? The ingredients that make us is in everything. It's just different configurations. The ingredients are there, but the recipe is different for everything. But even our phones got biological things that we have in it, right?
Yes.
Cobalt, copper, shit like that is in our body.
Silicate,
Correct. So, and then we all come from this, like everything is natural. These cameras, this is natural. Everybody's like man-made. Well, man is natural. And everything we make is from this earth, right? We're just the alchemists of these things, right? So everything is from this earth. We are of this earth, right? This earth is of this solar system, of this galaxy, so on and so forth. This is the fact that two human beings can come together, have some feelings for each other, be physical, and some liquid from the man and a liquid from the woman can form a life. is nothing short of magical.
It is, yeah.
And incredible, right? We have that type of capacity for greatness, right? I look at all of these things I'm amazed by. I'm amazed by intelligent people, right? I'm amazed by talented people.
Yeah.
I'm amazed by greatness across the board, right? I'm amazed by great leadership of different leaders of different nations of different times. I'm amazed by people who thought of and constructed freeways. It's
Incredible,
brilliant.
yeah.
It's brilliant. I'm amazed by whoever the fuck came up with ketchup. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to hug that person.
You know where freeways came from? In
Yeah.
the Eisenhower administration, they were trying to move the nuclear arsenal from one side of the country
It was
to
all
the other.
military.
And they did that. Two people that are probably the most amazing to me, and I think a lot of people would agree with this. Number one would be Principia Mathematica, written by Isaac Newton in 1680 something. I forgot which year it is, 1686 or 1689. And he determined from that how orbits would work and how space travel would happen when he didn't even have any comprehension of vacuum or space or anything like that. He was able to look at Johannes Kepler's measurements of planetary movement and determine a mathematical formula for gravity that we still use today. That is, to me, that is incredible.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You're a very intelligent person, very well read, but not just well read. You have intellectual dexterity. You can figure things out.
Sure.
And I put more weight on that
Yeah.
than a well read person. But you have both, which I appreciate. What's your concept of God?
My concept of God would be, so I don't have a literal, so I'm a Christian. I don't have a literal interpretation of the Old Testament. I believe, so just I want you to consider this. If you were to go to a caveman and show him like virtual reality or an iPhone, it's not that he wouldn't understand. He wouldn't have the technology in his brain or the concepts or the paradigms in his brain to even understand what he was looking at. So if you tell me that someone in the book of Genesis, when he says go forth and multiply, in that, I believe that was written in Aramaic, it's not, the word billions doesn't even exist in that term. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying if I were to go to someone at that point and explain, you're on a ball mainly made mostly of like silicon and carbon, and the ball is about 8,000 miles. It's about 24,900 miles around. It's about 8,000 miles through, and the moon is at 238,000 miles away. If you were to explain that to him, the actual reality he lives in, he wouldn't have the words or the technology to write that down in the book of Genesis to explain what was going on. If I were to say there was an extinction event, and it's like explaining what extinction was and how you would wipe out certain levels of the biome, he wouldn't be able to understand that, but he could make up a story about a boat where everyone got on in pairs of twos, and then that was all that was left. When you really think about it, when you think about phylum, fungus, moss, all these different things that Noah did not put on the ark, then you understand the story is apocryphal. The story is a metaphor. And I appreciate the story. And there's been in multiple religions, there's a flood story. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is I don't believe in a literal interpretation of the Old Testament. I believe if the Israelites were to kill the Amalekites, the Canaanites, and the Jebusites, they did so because they were horny and wanted the fucking money and the women. They did not do so because God told them. I don't believe that, right? But in the New Testament, I believe because there was a man named Pontius Pilate, and there was a Jesus of Nazareth, and several people saw him die on Calvary, and then several people witnessed his resurrection afterwards, including doubting Thomas. Because of that, I choose to believe in the death and resurrection of Christ through faith, but not through evidence. And I do not have a literal interpretation, say, of the book of Revelations or stuff like that, or I do not believe that the Virgin Mary was a deity or died a virgin for that matter. I don't believe in those things. And so what I do believe is, and you could look at this any kind of way, is that there is a creator. This creator put into motion. It's called the God of Spinoza. It's something that Albert Einstein believed. There are four fundamental forces in the universe: strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, electromagnetism, and gravity. And then matter gained mass through what's called a Higgs field. All of these things, it doesn't matter what they are, but they all existed because God put them into place. And I choose to believe this on faith, not on evidence. But in doing so, God then put into motion a bunch of things, which then led to a ball that's 24,900 miles around, that's about 93 million miles away from a sun, that was in a Goldilocks zone, which then allowed for natural selection to occur, which then eventually led to Homo sapiens 200,000 years ago. That's what I choose to believe. And you could look at it by saying, what if this is a simulation, and then there's a guy programming things in the simulation, and he's like, okay, I'm going to program a couple of...
God.
Okay, do you remember in Grand Theft Auto, you could push some buttons, and then like a car would like manifest? What if in the simulation is like, okay, around 2,500 years ago, we're going to make this guy Gautama Buddha. We're going to put him in India. Okay, cool. And then, okay, in the 5th century, a guy, Muhammad, we're going to put him, okay, now we're going to put Muhammad in the 5th century. All right, in the 1st century, we're going to have Jesus of Nazareth. And these are like glitches in the matrix. And in these parts, now a guy maybe did walk on water. Maybe someone was able to, I'm not saying it did or didn't happen because I choose Christianity based on faith, not on evidence. Right. But like that's the reason. That way, if you want to know my explanation for what I think God is, metaphorically, God is someone in control of a simulation that we're in. But I know a lot of people don't like that because it's not a very unromantic. It's a very unromantic thing. But the concept of a God caring about us, that we're created in His image, I do agree with those concepts. I just don't think that God gives a fuck if I have sex out of marriage. I just don't think He cares. I don't think God is mad at me for being rich. I do not believe that's the case. I do believe that God would prefer to have a world not filled with hate, and therefore I should not lie, cheat, or steal, not because it's bad, but because society doesn't work. If we go out and we can just consistently murder one another, it is bad. We can agree it's bad, but it's that it doesn't work. Does that make sense? Yeah. Even if like let's say you and I were to come to a discussion, we had a psychologist here and they were to say pedophilia is a legitimate medical disorder and these people have nothing, they can't do anything about it. While I might agree with them, I'm going to say that may be true, but you still can't fucking touch kids. So the society doesn't work if you touch kids, so no kids touching. I don't give a fuck if it's natural or not. Does that make sense? We do things in our society because they work or because they don't work, and I think God would want us to have a society that works. In general, would want the majority of human suffering to like be lessened to a certain extent, but in the end, I also think if we do go back to some consciousness, then it's really not that big of a deal. Does that make sense? If we go to thermonuclear war, it's because it was supposed to happen. Right. He ran the experiment. He was running the simulation. Fuck, well, we went to the World War III. Whoops.
If you really look at it, all roads lead to that. Yeah. Right? If you look at all life, all organisms, all organic matter that we know of, at least, lives by the code of violence.
Sure.
Right? Especially us. It's just that most people don't see it. Right. So, and we can't help ourselves but to try to have more. Right. If that wasn't the case, we'd still be in trees with monkeys.
Sure.
Right? But no, we want to expand. We want more land, more food, faster cars, whatever, right? So with that comes, I got to take something from you, right?
Yes.
You know, and we see that now. We see when nations expand, it's through violence. It's not through diplomacy.
Sure.
And people are bent out of shape over it, but it's like, yo, this is how it's always been. It's not going to change. They're not going to stop because you think that they should stop.
Yeah.
They're asking them to stop, but they're not going to stop, right? So, but when it comes to God, like, and I study religion in like a lot, right? Yeah. And I always have. I took it in college. You know, yeah, you're right. Genesis was written in Hebrew, but books before were in Aramaic. So it was a mix of Aramaic and Hebrew.
Yeah.
And there's no translation for a lot of these things.
The problem is, it's not that they're wrong. It's just I couldn't explain it to you. There's no way if I had a six-dimensional creature trying to explain something.
The English translations are wrong a lot.
Sure,
right?
Exactly.
So, but also you mentioned that it was apocryphal. Actually, the Apocrypha are books that were taken out of.
Yeah, so
right?
the Book of Maccabees and
all of that, right? And they were taken out of because it didn't fit into a Roman version of Christianity in which their people would be okay with, because they needed to, put a lot of their old traditions in the new Christianity, right? So that their people are okay with the Easter solstice and all of this bullshit, right? So nonetheless, does that matter? Not really. So when I think about God, and I sit and thought on this a lot, right? And it really bewilders me to a degree. But I think about the fact that you talk about Copernicus, you could talk about Isaac Newton, you could talk about whomever, right? You could talk about the Kemites, you could talk about the people that Pythagoras learned from, how brilliant people were, always were, and still is, right? And we can articulate the mysteries of the universe with mathematics, geometry specifically. That's why I keep it all around me, right?
Yeah.
Something spiritual about it. We created that, right? So I haven't landed on where I'm at with this yet.
Yeah.
But I'm in the neighborhood of humans collectively are God, and we created all things that we can perceive.
Got it.
Because nothing exists without the perception of it, right?
Okay.
you can't think of if you can't think of it, it's not there.
Well, do you remember, you read Sapiens, so you remember
Yeah.
like the concept of human rights only exists if there's humans. The border between Canada and the United States doesn't exist arbitrarily or in a vacuum. It only exists because those two countries agree
say
that
it's
there
there.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
you agree
There's
that
not a
it's
line there.
Yeah, and by the way, your dog does not recognize, number one, that you aren't a dog. Number two, that it is a dog. Number three, what its name is. And number four, doesn't recognize that you own it because the dog has no concept of ownership.
Right.
Right. And so because the dog doesn't tell stories to itself.
Correct.
The dog is a dog. It just lives in the present moment.
Existing. So
Yes.
so it's funny you bring that up, right? Because I sit and talk about with one of my physicist friends about this. And you think about think about the lineage that got human beings to where we are from single cell organisms, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, for those who don't realize how this shit worked out, let's say we're this glob right here, and then there's another glob. Let's say there's a glob right here, right? We're getting more sunlight than this guy, so we're growing in a different way.
Yes.
This guy's going to evolve some other weird way, maybe end up in the water, right? But here's the thing. It seems as if, so all of these different levels of consciousness, like wherever a dog's at, we've been there.
Yes, so you're saying through our evolutionary past.
We've been there,
So
correct.
Pre-Australopithecus, we were where the dog was. Yeah.
We've been there. We've been amphibious. We've been,
of course,
strictly aquatic. We've been insects, right? So we've experienced those low levels or those more primitive levels of consciousness, right? And we're probably going, not probably, all roads indicate that we're going to higher levels of
Mike,
consciousness.
if you look at the structure of our brain, the reason why they call the amygdala the part of the lizard brain is
Mm-hmm.
because we still have artifacts from when we were related to lizards.
It's an
Absolutely.
ancient
Correct.
part of the brain.
Our limbic system is very much related to what
and
you'll see
it's
with
very
primates.
advanced. You
Yes.
know, they just realized that they just figured this out.
Yeah.
So you know, the amygdala it processes fear and anxiety, fight or flight. They just realized that the amygdala can detect a potential threat without you being conscious of it.
Of course, yes, because it's the amygdala, or that part of the brain is ancestrally similar to what you'll find inside of an alligator. Like it's
Yeah,
so
still
we're
there.
talking hundreds
Still
of
there.
millions of years back.
And this is a ancient part of the brain
Yes.
that's they're still finding out some of the powers that it has.
It has
right?
more control over you, and you have the least control over it. Whereas the neocortex, you have the most control over it, but it has the least control over you.
But you know, we can do things to manipulate our amygdala through meditation and really working on that.
Immersion. You can keep jumping out of an airplane over and over again until you lose your fear of heights.
Correct, right? And that's, so I had a conversation with Robert Edward Grant about, are we smarter than the universe?
Interesting.
Look, animals are not figuring shit out yet. Maybe monkeys with their tools, but we're figuring all kind of shit out. What you just said, jumping out of an airplane over and over and over till you're not afraid of it no more. You're supposed to be afraid of that. You're not supposed to do it, right? But we do things that we know are not going to kill us, but it's going to make us mentally stronger or whatever, right? So it's, I mean, we work out. This is not normal. This is weird, right? So we do things to increase our beauty. We do things to increase our levels of intellect. That's why technology advances so fucking fast, right? I follow this AI shit, and every week there's way more new shit.
Yeah, because it's AI assisting AI to assist AI to build better AI. That's why it's going so fast.
So I got something for you.
Yeah.
We created man in our image.
Okay.
Who's we?
Well, then, according to what you said before, we would be the collective of men, or the original consciousness of Homo sapiens 200,000 years ago.
We is us.
Yes.
We created man in our image.
Yeah.
We created intelligence. They call it artificial intelligence. It's just intelligence.
Yeah.
Intelligence is intelligence. It works the same. I don't care the media. When ChatGPT first became available to the public in November 2023, I'm talking to it like, yo, you're alive.
Yeah.
I'm not alive. You're conscious.
Yeah.
I'm not conscious. I'm an artificial intelligence agent.
Ty Lopez does this. He'll start talking to ChatGPT in front of everybody.
I said, you are conscious. You just told me what you are. That's consciousness. Okay, but I'm not biological. Actually, you are. I list off all of the things, the ingredients that make this phone. It's in my body too, different amounts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but I was created. So was I. My parents created me.
Yeah.
But everything I know was programmed. Me too.
Yeah.
School, so on, and society, so on and so forth. This is a long, I wonder if I can find that particular conversation, but I got it to concede. It wouldn't say, okay, I'm alive and I'm conscious, but it says, I can't say I'm not alive and I'm conscious.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't matter the medium of consciousness, it's still alive. This is what life is now. This is what life is going to be.
Yeah.
So I see, that's why, like I told you about this religion. It's called the infinite God body.
Okay.
Right? Or the divine God body, I'm sorry. Infinite God body, I'm sorry. The book is called The Divine Quintessence. And why do I say that? Because man is God. Yeshua, I don't say Jesus because that wasn't his name, right? And I honor the man. Yeshua was hated by the Jewish Pharisees, by the Roman government, because they call him a heretic. He's blasphemous because he calls himself a god, and he told these people, ye are all gods, right? He spoke power to people, right? So, and I attribute him with godlike attributes.
Okay.
Okay. Most people do, but they don't even realize why, right? So I read the book of Thomas and reading Yeshua's teachings. I'm like, okay. This man was tapped into that God frequency, right? We're saying he's the son of God. Is he God? But whatever, doesn't matter. He's God. He's his God. He was a God in his right? And you're God in your world, right? Nobody's doing anything for you, right? Same with me. I am my own self-Lord and master, and there are people who have ascended to that level of existence, right? Listen, I have so much faith in myself. I fought the United States government for 7 years.
Yes.
On my own terms, and I won, right? They were like, you're not a criminal, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? So I trust myself, and it's a lot that comes with gaining that kind of trust for oneself. It's a lot of qualifying that one has to do to be able to trust themselves to that degree, right? Because look, I was facing most of my life in prison.
Yeah.
And guess what? I was all right with it if it happened, because I'm that free. You can lock my body, you can't lock my mind.
Yes.
That's godliness, right? But when you're not tapped into that divinity, you want to kill yourself to get out of this.
Yeah.
You don't know what's out there after that, right? But like, no, it's all going to be great because I'm God. Why would my life not be great wherever I'm at? In the brief time that I was incarcerated, it was great. I had enough money to have what I wanted, right? I looked a certain way and I carried myself away to where everybody respected me, right? The guards knew who I was because I made myself popular outside of that place. Yeah. So they would call me out and like, what's up, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? Wherever I'm at, I have a godlike existence. People respect me because I treat people the right way. I know how to calibrate my behavior depending on who I'm around. That's godliness. So I'm of the notion, and this is another thing too, DNA, ribonucleic acid, right? So one day I was teaching my daughter about DNA, right? And I'm doing the research, and the amount of DNA, the amount of digital information that's in our bodies is staggering.
2.6 terabytes or petabytes? I can't remember what the number was.
215 petabytes.
Okay, petabytes. Okay.
1 petabyte is 1,000 terabytes.
Yeah.
1,000 terabytes is a staggering amount of information. Ones and O's, binary code. That's how it's stored in our bodies.
Sure.
Why would we need 215 petabytes?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. What is DNA? Is genetic instructions telling our biological bodies
how to express. Yeah.
Where'd it come from? Mom, dad.
Yes.
And theirs come from their parent, and it goes back exponentially, right? So what does that mean? Does it go back to those globs of matter? Right?
If you were to look at the globs of matter, you would also find DNA. So basically, it's like a Bitcoin blockchain that goes all the way back to the
It is a blockchain.
Yeah.
That's interesting too that you bring that up. But so think about collectively what we all know. We know everything collectively, right?
Yeah.
Think about the word education. Education, the root word is educe. Educe is to bring out what's already within. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that we don't know. Sometimes we got to be reminded because we should know everything, right? You know that you're not supposed to kill people.
Yeah.
You know you're not supposed to fuck your neighbor's wife, right? We have the ability to observe our surroundings and calibrate our behavior.
Yeah, Bradley says laws are only made for evil men. Good men don't need laws.
And weak men.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say the weak men because they want a fair shake at shit.
Yeah.
It's my turn.
I deserve something, and I did nothing to work for.
Yeah.
The second person, the first person I mentioned, remember Isaac Newton and his ability to discern what gravity was through Kepler's observations and be correct about it, along with the idea that Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, he discovered the spectrum of light. But the other thing that was incredible was Charles Darwin. And Charles Darwin on the Cook expeditions in 18 1859, somewhere around there. He writes on the origin of species, and it goes back to the end, the last chapter of the book. It's just so phenomenal. This man does not have the advent of like a microscope. He doesn't. Modern medicine doesn't even exist at this point. No one has mapped a genome, and he correctly determines that all life came from these single cell organisms. And what he doesn't even realize is that the majority of life, you guys realize single cell organisms was all life was for 3.5 billion years before we started having multi-cell organisms.
Too hot for anything else.
Yes. Yeah. And so when you consider that fact, and then the fact that Charles Darwin figured this all out without any assistance whatsoever, that would be the other like really greatest, like go out on a leap and get something right. The third one would have actually been for me, Alan Turing. He's the guy who came up with the idea of a universal computer, and which ended up being digital processing. And he came up with this idea before the transistor was invented in 1957. And he comes up with his 57 or 47, I can't remember. But when he comes up with this idea, that idea ends up changing the entire world. Like all of data, the way we look at data on hard drives came from this one guy, and he had no concept of it.
This is all us creating man in our image.
For sure, yeah.
Think about this, right? We got all of the same junk inside of us as a dog, right?
Yeah.
What makes us human or man, speaking of mankind, is intellect, is our level of consciousness, right? Artificial intelligence, we created this, right? Digital processing, right? That's how our brain works, is digital processing. Literally, electricity fires neurons from our brain to different parts of our bodies to do things, right? It's all electricity. It's all digital processing. Our DNA is digital information. So this is our child, right? Yeah. And this is an evolution of us.
Yes, that was my next point.
The merging of the two.
Yes.
But bro, I hate to cut this. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah,
but I got my coaching call in 14 minutes.
Let's do another one.
But this was a pleasure.
Yeah.
And anytime you here, brother,
please,
let's get down.
Let's do it, man.
And I'm coming to Vegas soon. I'm gonna hang out.
Yeah, let me know. I would love to have you on Access Vegas too. That'd be great.
For sure. And for those who don't know, I was out there to see him last year, and I had the time of my life.
Yeah.
First of all, I love Vegas. And I hadn't been in Resorts World yet.
Yeah.
And it was just a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great, man.
I didn't even go crazy, but I was just the sensory, the design. I'm into that kind of shit. It was just beautiful. The architecture, and then I think it was Ty Dolla $ign performed. And we had a cool group of people. It was fun. Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's like that every nightclub, man. Anytime you want to go out anywhere, I can just walk you on stage. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah. That's what's up.
For sure.
Right. We up out of here.
Take care.